Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order at 3:40. We do have a quorum. So, Bob, I'm gonna turn the meeting over to you.
All right, thanks, Rich.
Hey, wait, and then just make sure, Galen, are you recording? You're recording?
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm good to go.
Okay. Okay, thank you, guys.
All right, so first off, my apologies about not being there Monday. I hope that my absence didn't create any undue stress on anybody, but I do appreciate the flexibility to have my kid's birthday dinner with me. So just wanted to add that, but thank you for that. So in the time since you guys met, there's been a list of requests that came to Tracy, Donna, and I to explore and to talk about. And so we wanted to report out on where we stand on those, and want to start out by saying we don't have a solution right this second. So just, everyone knows we're not coming to you with a solution at this moment, but just an update of where we're at. We've done quite a bit of thinking and working on this. In the interim, I've also reached out to the AOE's counsel, Emily Simmons, and the SU's counsel, Pietro Lynn, to get some ideas around how some of these things, what we came up with might interplay with the law, policy, and or your articles of agreement. So coming at you from a bunch of different directions. So the first thing that was brought up was about how we search for a candidate, right? And what sort of recruitment are we doing, and what could we do to expand that? That's one that we're still working on. We've got some creative ideas about how to title a position that might attract people who aren't looking for teaching jobs, but people that have degrees, to then pursue with them whether or not they're interested in pursuing a teaching license through a provisional route. But we're still working on the language of what that might look like to try to get another posting up that would attract someone with a minimum with a bachelor's degree to seek that out. Additionally, we do have a person of interest. It's not like a legal term, but we have a person of interest that Donna is exploring a little bit further to find out if that person might be interested in pursuing some kind of path to teaching.
Mm-hmm.
He's froze.
Bob, I think you're frozen.
Bob, shut off your video. It might be enough for you to.
I'll text him and let him know that he is off. Looks like he's off and coming back in. There's Jenny.
Lost Bob, as you can probably tell. So, are you not? Can you?
There he is.
Okay. So here's Bob's coming back in, folks. Give us a sec. Hey, Bob, turn your video off. I think you'll do better.
You got to put your volume on.
There you
Thank
go.
you. My phone was in the dash and it overheated and it shut itself off.
Oh, okay.
So this is a different phone. So apologies for that.
Stay still contest. You didn't move for a long time.
Good. I'm always good. Stationary activities.
So
where did I leave off?
You have a person of interest that Don has been talking to, and that's where you kind of froze up.
Yeah.
Okay. So after that, the next step was for us to explore what our options were, utilizing the existing resources of the district, and to try to figure out how best to serve these kids, right? So we said no idea is too crazy. The three of us put together, we threw out 8 different crazy ideas. Not all of them are crazy, but 8 ideas, which I can tell you what they all are. But before I tell you what they all are, what I'm going to say is that 4 of them we had to rule out based on the legal advice we got. So let me tell you what the legal advice we got was first, and then we can go from there. One of the things that we talked about, reducing the number of grades that were operating within a building. And apparently under 16 VSA 722C, that anything that reduces the operational grades within a building has to be approved both by the electorate and by the State Board of Ed. In fact, the State Board of Ed might have to approve that first before the electorate can even do it. So we took anything that involved that off the table once we learned that, which changed obviously a couple of different things. Secondly, the River Valley Articles of Agreement talked about schools closing and specifically said that that requires a consent of the electorate. So we took anything that involved that off the table. Okay. And then the best thing we came up with was the other part of the articles, Article 1, which talks about flexibility and ensuring that all students have access to everything that's being available. The other piece of information I'll throw out to you from the transportation side when we start talking about these plans is that the Dover Bus Run extension, the Dover Bus Run goes to the end of Blue Brook and Route 100 on the north side of Blue Brook, and the southernmost run of Wardsboro turns around at the Stratton-Arlington Road. Those 2 spots are about 2 miles apart, and that's all we know right now, that there is a 2-mile gap that could be covered in some way if we had to, but we wanted you guys to know that that's the gap of transportation right now. All right, so that being said, are you ready to hear the 4 ideas we came up with that do not violate the law or your Articles of Agreement?
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay. And now, again, these are in no particular order, and I'm going to tell you up front that the 3 of us have not agreed on that any one of these is the best plan. We are not here to make a suggestion. We're just telling you where we're at with our thinking, okay? I want to be clear about that. The first one was that the Wardsboro 5th and 6th graders all go to Dover. That would impact 13 students. What Dover would do to respond on their end to make it work is at the 3rd grade, we would move the 4th graders into the 3rd grade class and make that a mixed group. So we have a 3-4 group. The 5th would become straight grade, and the 6th would remain straight grade with those kids coming into it. But 13 Wardsboro kids would be impacted, and of course, all the kids in Dover, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th would all be impacted. So that's one option. Another option was take the 6th grade and the 6th grade teacher in Dover and bring them to Wardsboro. And then create a 5-6 combo in Wardsboro with that model. You're impacting 7 Dover students plus 1 staff member. And you're impacting the other 5th and 6th graders, obviously at Wardsboro, who would be merging with these other kids from Dover. So that was another plan. The third option was to take the pre-K that are currently at Wardsboro and push them into the Dover pre-K, which would leave you with still 3 staff members at Wardsboro, and then realign what those 3 staff members are assigned to teach, creating a K-1-2, a 3-4, and a 5-6. And all 3 of those staff members would be in grades. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, all 3 of those staff members would be in grades that they're not currently teaching, or in all new grades. And the pre-K kids would have to be in Dover, which we recognize for the youngest kids. That's also an impact, and that's 5 kids total in the Wardsboro pre-K. So that was the third option. And then the fourth option was simpler, which was to take the 6th graders at Wardsboro and send them to Dover. The 5th graders would remain at Wardsboro, they would join a 3-4 class to make a 3-4-5. We would support that by hiring an additional para to support the classroom teacher in some breakout work. And Principal Basic would support that as well by doing 5th grade ELA, and would get support from the district's curriculum director and the AST at Wardsboro. And that would impact the 5 6th graders who are at Wardsboro would be brought to Dover. We recognize that bringing kids who are in their last year in a school before they transition to another school creates a transition. But again, we want to lay out all the possible scenarios that are feasible, at least from a logistical standpoint, if not a political standpoint. So those are the 4 things we're at. They all have problems to them. They all have positives, they all have negatives. One of them does involve an additional para support. The others do not involve any additional staffing per se, but there will be transportation logistics that would have to be figured out as well on each of those to see where the best case is. Yeah, so that's. I mean, I think that's the rough draft of where we're currently at with our thinking, and our hope is to continue to meet and digest this, given any feedback that you guys have for us today, before we come with a final recommendation to you guys as well. But again, our hope is that we're still posting and still searching for a candidate. That's still plan A along the way.
Okay, so go ahead, Donna.
Yeah, I just have one last clarification on our last option. There was that with this, option, that this would only be for the year, with the hope that we still search out a 5-6 teacher. Yeah,
any one of these options are a 1-year temporary solution. That the intent would be to maintain pre-K to 6 at each school individually for next year.
So was that all you guys had, or do you have, those are the 4 in the local? Was there anything else, Bob?
Yeah, well, the other ones involved either closing Wardsboro and just merging everybody. One of them involves tuitions being sent out to other places, which, as I mentioned, that is more complicated than it ought to be, I think, based on what I heard from Emily Simmons and from Pietro. One of them involved reaching out to West River to try to see if there's an opportunity with Jamaica to do something creative, which might not be a full merger, but maybe like a shared thing where some kids go one place, one kids go someplace else. And one of the 2 tuition options, one was to offer 6th grade tuition only, do similar to what we're describing with Donna at with the last option, but offer tuition in 6th grade. And the other one was the tuition all 5th and 6th grade out, let them go wherever they want and keep the 3, 4th grade. So those things all became challenging once we learned more about the legal side of it.
But is it that because of the articles of agreement, that's what's creating the issue? Because for protection, when we formed the district, people didn't want to just have a school closed without those in the town having a lot of say. So even though we're saying this is just a 1-year fix because of circumstances way unforeseeable and unforeseen, there's no way to waiver that for just the 1 year.
I didn't push. Yeah, I didn't push Emily on that piece. And I've not obviously had any conversations with anybody else other than Pietro. Pietro's suggestion was more about that if you're shuttering grades, the conversation was more on a permanent basis, not a short-term basis, but that required State Board of Ed approval and then voter approval. But if it's a temporary thing, I don't think that it would, but I would have to confirm that a little bit better, I think, as well.
Okay, because I think that's the important thing is because I don't think I'm wondering if it is something that we could throw as another option out there. But let's make sure, because I know if you offer a grade, it's hard to tuition to do the tuitioning. So I think
you're right. That was the wrinkle, that we're offering it at another place in the district. So sending kids there was the better solution than trying to consider the tuitioning.
Okay. So are you all set, Bob?
I mean, I know people may have questions, but that's what I have for factual report out. Yep.
Yeah, no, we're gonna get there. And Donna, you all set?
Okay.
Tracy, are you good? Okay, so go ahead, Laura, you were first.
Number one, thank you. Appreciate hearing all of this feedback. It's making me happy. Number two, Richard, I'm not sure what it was that you were suggesting as another option.
You had that other option to.
What you were just talking about.
AOE and see
Oh,
if it,
just,
yeah.
so what Bob was looking at, when he talked to them, so in the Articles of Agreement, if you remember, Dwight will probably remember it, there was concern with the 3 schools that two schools may try to shut the other school down. So we put a safety in there that says we cannot change or make the grades different in a school building without permission of the voters of that
Okay.
town.
Okay.
So that
Okay.
like Wardsboro couldn't all of a sudden grow and say, we don't like Dover. So let's, the board votes to close the Dover building, but you can't do that unless you have a vote of the electorate, and the Dover electorate has to approve it, or the Wardsboro electorate. And that's kind of what you're doing when you're tuitioning out. We're supposed to, the reason we went in with the group we went in with was because we were pre-K through 6th grade.
Right, we're the same. Got it.
Right. If we
Got it.
change that, well, we still have availability in the district. We have a 6th grade in the district. So before you just start pushing people,
Right.
allowing them, that's why I said on Monday night that it's not as simple as just, we're going to pay tuition to somebody
Right.
else.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
But again, this is kind of like one of those perfect storms. I mean, I've never, in all the years I've been on a school board, had this kind of situation develop with a staff member and their spouse and the family, and then to just be gone,
Yeah. But we're on our way to a solution, that's what this feels like. So,
right.
Bob, I have 2 more questions, and then I guess a few comments. So the 2 questions are, I feel a sense of urgency on behalf of the parents to have a decision get made pretty quickly, or to put a date out there, or some sort of dated framework for parents so that they have a sense of when we're going to make a decision and what we're going to do. And number 2 is, what can the board do to assist you and our staff in this, unprecedented situation in getting to a good decision for our families for this year as quickly as possible? Is there anything that you need from us?
I don't think so. I think
Hey, Bob, hang on. Laura, hold that for 1 second, okay? For me. Let's just the possibilities that Bob put out. Let's just make sure everybody understands them, everybody's comfortable. And then I think the next thing is, where do we go from here? So can you hold that thought for 1 minute?
Those questions? Sure, I
Yeah.
can hold those questions. Then I would also add in a few other items that I wonder about, which is if there is any difference in going one direction or the other in terms of number of families that are impacted that have, because of the multi-age, so kids in various classrooms, if you have a sense of that. And then also just to kind of put a programmed bias that I have from my years in Dover, we have always had this sense of like pre-K, we would want to see pre-K stay closer to home. So I could potentially be moved, but I'm just kind of putting that on the table, that I'm a little like, oof, on that one. Okay, thanks. And I definitely will come back to hear the answer to my questions when you're ready, Rich.
Yeah, so Laura, and that's what I wanted to have, like the pre-K. We've always talked about not moving younger students. They don't last as long. They don't last. Sounds like they're
Well, Dover has.
expiration date.
I don't know
But,
if River Valley's has, but Dover has.
No, we did during the discussion on forming the district, that it would always make sense that the younger students, the pre-K, 1st grade, should be locally, because that's when they have separation anxiety. They may need mommy or daddy for something. And that we always felt that we would need to have that available in both towns. So, and Bob, I know you weren't part of that, but that was pretty strong from a lot of people during those discussions. But again, we can look at it because it impacts the fewest number of people, and some people do, like who work over towards Dover may want to drop their child off, and with universal preschool, they can pretty much go anywhere they want anyways. So, but that's a good point. So is there any questions on the, go ahead, Dwight, and let's just stick to the to their proposals.
Okay, yeah, great. And thanks, Bob, for putting these together. I know it's not easy, and none of these are perfect by any means. But I do notice two of them are similar, where we have students, sixth grade students from Dover going to Wardsboro, or sixth grade students from Wardsboro going to Dover. What I would say is maybe it's possible, if we decide on either one of those, to not be in one school building for the full year, maybe alternating from school to school. That way there's a sense each group can go back and forth, maybe every other week or every other month. That way there's still a connection to the home school for the rest of the year.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's worth exploring for sure.
Plus we'll have more kids for the soccer team.
They could play each other, Dwight.
Yeah. So I mean, just so a better connection with their home school, I think it's in a sense of fairness as well.
Are you all set, Dwight?
Yeah, that's all I had. Thanks.
Mike, do you have any comments or thoughts?
I kind of like where Dwight was just heading with that, because I know sixth grade, I think there are unrelated, but there's only 2 boys in that class. So it would be a nice little camaraderie if there was some more, boys to hang out with those 2. So, I mean, that seems like a valid option. And another thing I know about the pre-K, but Miss Lindsay and Miss Katrina are just awesome. So Wardsboro shouldn't shy away from that option either, because they're phenomenal. They're top tier.
Okay, so, pardon? What?
Nothing. I wanted to say we have top tier here at Wardsboro.
Oh,
too.
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying.
Got to stick up for my
Absolutely,
staff.
absolutely.
So, Bob, the one question I had on all this, and I know, this started Monday night and you haven't had a lot of time. One of your proposals has a bunch of moving staff around. Do you see, has this been discussed with the staff? Or,
Well,
is there buy-in from the staff too, I guess, is my question.
yeah, well, I mean, I think from Donna's perspective, I think the Wardsboro staff has had some cursory conversations about this. And this sort of ties in actually to what Laura was asking earlier, is like, what could we do? I really want to try to give the problems, like, I think, not that it's a Wardsboro problem, because it's River Valley's problem, but if the Wardsboro school staff has, like, if they lean toward a particular model that they felt was a good solution, I would want to give that some credence and let them really have some input. But to your question about all the staff involved, for example, one of them involves a sixth grade in Dover teacher moving. To my knowledge, unless Tracy's had a conversation, to my knowledge, that person is not in the loop on that. They've not been consulted. I don't know how they would feel. My assumption is that it would be a challenge for them, right? But I don't know that. So I think, yeah, the staff has not been deeply surveyed, I don't think. But Wardsboro has had a meeting together to kind of talk about it and help problem solve.
Because you would have to, I mean, if it's something that they're not buying into, then it's not going to work very well because their heart's not going to be in it, and they'll try their best, but it's not fair to them either.
I'd like to say though that the staff and we are all student focused. What is best for the students? And it is getting them a teacher, and we hear that from the community. So, we're still having that hope of still trying to find out, like Loris, this is not just a Wardsboro problem. This is in other school systems having the same difficulty in finding teachers. And I liked how we had that option of finding somebody with a Bachelor of Arts and re-advertising it a little bit different, to really take some time and be creative to do that and talk more with the staff.
But again, the problem is, if that takes 6 weeks, then we're even further behind the 8 ball going somewhere else. So I think
So
we
I,
need to have a whole bunch of
I
things
agree.
like that. So if everybody's
Yeah.
good, Bob, is there any other thoughts, ideas anywhere that are floating around?
Well, the only other thing I would say about this, when you mentioned the timeline on this, I think that's an important thing for the board to, if you want to give us some direction on a timeline, I mean, we could have some ideas and recommendations, and maybe next week we'll have a cleaner picture of some ideas, and maybe the person of interest will be a good person of interest. There's a lot that could happen in the next couple of days, but to know like how long are we comfortable, and how long are the parents comfortable with the current situation versus
So
having another solution?
Bob, let's go there in 1 second, okay?
Okay.
So that, because then I'm going to let Laura ask her other questions, which I think was right up that alley also. So I'm not sure who all we got on TV, but I got a Donna, a person with no name, and Abby, and Trish I know, and Jen H. Do any of you have any comments
and Justin.
and who?
Justin.
Oh, that's Justin. I'm sorry, Justin. I didn't see your name. So do any of you want to make any comments on you've all, I believe, heard Bob and the administration's proposals? Do any of you want to tell us on, is there one that you really like? Is there one you really hate? Is there a combination like Dwight came up with a little bit of a change up? We'll go around and give you guys a few minutes to tell us what you all think. And you can, whoever, Justin, you want to go first?
Sure, that's fine. I honestly, I just got on 5 minutes ago, so I think I missed everything.
Yeah.
I'm
But
sorry.
I think for me, I'm gonna lean more on Donna to kind of throw in what she's feeling is gonna be the best fit. For me, she's the one that's there every day, and she's seeing what's going on, and I guess I would trust her judgment at that point. Like I said, I haven't heard any of the options really, so
We'll get them to you. They'll be
Yeah.
available shortly. Okay.
okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
No, and that's a good comment. Jen H, do you want to? And you don't have to. You can just not say anything.
Jen Hetrick, do you have any comments?
Yeah, got it. Sorry. I think they all involve so much moving people, and it's hard to pick one that really makes the most sense to me. There's just so much moving pieces. We have a 5th grader at Wardsboro and a 3rd grader at Wardsboro, so all of these involve a lot of different moving pieces that, and I, without really spending much time to think, I don't know which one sounds best.
So if you think about it, I think you've been here from the beginning. Definitely if you have any thoughts or something hits you in the morning, make sure you send an email off to Donna, please.
I will. Thank you.
And the same with you, Justin. If after you see these, you say, hey, I really don't like this one at all, just let them know, because we want to try to, get as much input as we can. Trisha, do you want to weigh in at all?
Sure, I will. I have to say, as the awesome pre-K and kindergarten teacher from Wardsboro, there's one plan that affects me more than another. And I have to say that I would be very sad to see pre-K go to a different school. I think that could possibly affect Wardsboro long-term if we send our pre-K kids to a different school. So that is a plan that I would not like to see happen. Other than that, I agree with Janet. They all have a lot of changes, and it's really, I'm not ready to make a decision or have an opinion quite yet on that.
Okay, and again, Trish, I know maybe tomorrow if you have one, you can just drop a note off for Donna.
Sure.
Jen
and Rich,
parents, correct?
Rich, can I jump in, Rich, for a second on that?
Yeah.
And one of the things too that I just want to point out, and that because parents in particular, were thinking about a 5-6 issue, pre-K parents are probably not represented in this group at all. And so they don't even know that that's even something that's being
Yeah.
talked about. So that's just something to keep aware of as well, that not all the people who are here as parents are most likely 5-6 parents only.
Okay. Hey, Tracy, can I just finish with the last two and then I'll get to you? Okay. Abby, you want any comments? Abby Larson?
I think so. I have a 6th grader that it will affect. And I think what it comes down to for me is just we need to come up with, and I think that's what you guys are working on, but a deadline. If we can't get a teacher by this point, this is where our next step, and this is where we're moving. Because at this point, personally, my son has, he has anxiety and the transition at the beginning of the school year with losing a teacher that he was very close with, a principal, everything's new there. He's struggling, and I think they're getting into his schedule right now. But I think another transition, if I move him to Dover, and then next year he goes to Leland and Gray, will be even harder on him.
Abby, you went blank on us. Abby? We'll come back to her if she,
Oh,
I don't.
Are you sorry?
No,
I
we
froze.
heard another transition and then you ended. So whatever you said after that.
So I think another transition of them having to move to Dover for 6 months, 7 months, and then they all go to another school next year will be even harder on these kids that have, that anxiety with transitions. So I think it would be nice and helpful for parents to just get a timeline of what, the board thinks is appropriate and the next steps, so that we have a plan so if their kids are moving 6th grade to Dover, that we can properly prep our kids.
Yeah, and that's why we scheduled these meetings so close together too, so that we understand. We definitely took that away from Monday night. So, and we do not want to just, say another 6 months or 6 weeks to keep the search open and then decide what to do. So we definitely are hearing you, Abby. Thank you.
Yep.
Donna,
Hey, Rich, I got no idea how to raise my hand. Can you just put me on the list?
Yeah, I will, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you.
Donna, go ahead if you'd like to.
Yeah, I think Abby was well said as far as all the transitioning for the kids right now. I think, especially with the 6th graders losing a teacher they were close to, and Tammy, who they were also close to. I think losing all that with all that transition, it was very difficult for them. Another transition obviously would be difficult, but getting them in somewhere settled and, into a learning situation where they're at least moving forward is really crucial at this time, because I feel like they're all in limbo. And it just really feels like they need, to feel like they're settled somewhere right now.
Okay, and I think that's going to be our next topic. I want to just hear people on the ideas. So thank you for that. I'm going to go to Tracy, and then I'm going to go Mikey and Laura.
I just want, if we're talking about all these things, I need an opportunity to talk to my staff. They don't know anything about this, and I'm so afraid that they're going to hear all of these things this teacher's going here and this teacher's going there, and it's not fair for them if I don't let them know first. So sharing out this document and talking about it makes me a little nervous when they don't know. My staff doesn't know anything. I thought this was just a, brainstorm. So I need the opportunity to be able to tell them something.
And that's what it is, Tracy. No decisions are going to be made. We just want to hear
I know, but they don't, but what I'm saying is there's no knowledge of one teacher going to Dover or kids coming from Wardsboro to Dover, or Dover kids going from Dover to Wardsboro. None of my parents even know that this is an option. So I just feel like I need to let parents know that this might be a possibility, particularly for my 6th grade students, and it impacts my 3rd grade, it impacts my 4th grade, it impacts my 5th grade, if all kids come here. So I think if we're going to have another meeting, it's only fair that everybody knows.
And everybody knew it was a warned meeting, Tracy. So, and I don't know what you're talking about for a document. I didn't see any document. Was there something, Bob?
No, there's no
I just
doc.
I just meant what Bob was saying. That's all. Like these options.
Yeah. Okay.
But irregardless of this being a warned meeting or not, we're talking about it impacting not only folks in Wardsboro. Like, I don't think anybody knew. Like, I understand that it's a warned meeting, but I don't think Dover parents know that this might be impacting them. That's what I'm trying to say.
I hear you. Mike, go ahead.
All right, kind of fitting for my next suggestion, but it would involve a diamond in the rough, and I mentioned her before. Not in the rough by any means, but it would be a great learning experience as Miss Katrina in our pre-K. I believe she is bumping uglies to get her master's. It might be a great experience for her to get some time having her own classroom. That no kids would be displaced, merely moving her from Dover to Wardsboro. I know you can't just tell her to pick up and move, but it's an option. I don't know if that was thought about or brainstormed. But she's right there. She's perfect.
As a 5th, 6th grade teacher?
No, like you were saying, if the pre-K came to here, you would shift your like 1-3, what have you. I believe she has an early childhood. But
yeah, hey, Mike, and that's kind of more of a personnel thing. So that's something that the administration can look into, but we really shouldn't be discussing people's qualifications and what they're doing in a public meeting. That's not for us.
Sure.
Sorry about that. I think unless there's something else in regards to the plans, I think the next thing we need to bring up, Laura, you just have timeline left, or did you have something else?
Well, now I have something else.
Okay, go with your something else, and I have one last thing, and then we'll move on to timeline.
Yeah. I think Tracy's point is a good point. And B, I think we need to make sure that parents know that what the situation is and that what we're looking at, depending on the timeline here. So, if we decide we've got until December 1st to make a decision, which for the record, I feel is about a month too long, we could probably hold off on letting folks know.
Okay.
But I think Tracy's got a fair point, and
and again, that's why we're having multiple meetings so that we can get the information out. And one of my things is this information that Bob was discussing. I was hoping that something can be put together so we could send it out tomorrow and just say these are our thoughts and get it to all the people. So that was kind of where I was going to go with the timeline, if you're okay with that.
Well, I would be fine with that. I would love to hear, what Bob is synthesizing from this conversation so far.
Okay, Dwight, go ahead.
Thanks, Rich. I just had to go off video for a sec. So you mentioned this earlier, Rich, about the needing clarification for tuitioning students if it's possible in an emergency situation or whatever you want to call this. So I would just ask Bob if you could just get clarification on that, so we could either take it off the table or at least give an answer to those parents who are looking for that option, so we know if that's even a possibility.
Yeah, and again, that's why we needed to have this meeting, because if we waited 2 weeks to find out we couldn't, or we wouldn't have had this question. So,
right.
So are you all set, sir?
Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, so the only thing, Bob, I just want to say,
Tricia Clark has
I know,
something.
and Tricia's not a board member, so
Okay.
Tricia can wait. Bob, the one thing I took away very strongly, and we all take away different things from meetings for Monday night's meetings, was the parents that came and spoke requested a teacher. They needed a teacher. and somebody who had experience, who could teach the kids, teach the students, I guess. So I think that's something. I know we had some different conversations, and one of the questions I had from early on I think in the first couple sentences I wrote was, do these involve certified teachers? We're talking about expanding how we hire and changing the way the article, I think you said, or the ad.
Right.
But I think the important thing that a lot of the parents are looking for was to make sure whoever we bring in is a really a certified, or I hate to use this term, certifiable teacher. Is it somebody who can get a license? I just think that needs to really be on the top of the list.
So, yeah, and I think that one of the things that the clarification is, like, if someone gets provisional licensure according to the AOE, they're licensed. So that doesn't mean that they have the educational training or the experience, but they're working towards it. But the AOE views that as someone who is licensed. So there is a little bit of a grayness in between, like, a teacher and a person with a bachelor's degree who is not a teacher. But they would work under the supervision of a mentor. They would work under Donna's supervision. Like, there's ways to ensure that they are supported in a way that they can develop lesson plans and unit plans that are, meaningful. So that the educational experience is good. If people are, if the solution people are waiting for is a licensed, experienced teacher to fall out of the sky, I'm going to caution you about that. It feels a little unrealistic at this point. But you never know. I mean, who knows?
But we've also, Bob, in the past, we've had people that had been a teacher or had gone to teaching school and just never got certified, and then they've worked in education. They never needed to be licensed, something like that. I just think whoever we're looking to put in there, we just want to make sure they're very well vetted. Maybe they're not a licensed teacher, but they worked in the parochial school for 25 years as a, 5th, 6th grade teachers that, and then.
No, I hear you.
So let's do this. We'll let Tricia be the last comment. And then Bob, you can talk about what you foresee as a doable, appropriate timeline. Okay. Go ahead, Trish.
Well, I was kind of piggybacking off of what Tracy had said before, and I think communication out to families is really important with this, and the staff. That it's, unless you have a kid in the 5th and 6th grade in Wardsboro, families might not know what is going on, and they might not even think that it would affect Dover at all. So there's a lot of these plans affect teachers, they affect families. So I'm thinking, I know the meeting was warned, but unless you went to the board meeting the other night, you might not know about this meeting or the next meeting. So I think the communication out to families, all families, is really important for this.
Okay, thank you, Tricia. So Bob, can you go ahead and tell us what you think is a doable timeline, is appropriate?
Well, so just to reiterate, we're talking about there's a plan A and a plan B, right? Plan A is that we get a licensed person in the room and we continue to run the way that we're running it, right? That's plan A. We're going to continue that search. We're going to continue to beat the bushes. We're going to see what we find. Plan B is, if we don't by a certain date, what does that look like? So I hear she mentioned December 1st, and with her concern with that being a long ways off, and I agree. Roughly 4 weeks from today puts you at Thanksgiving break. Here, my suggestion is that by November, the first meeting in November that you have, that at that point, we're making some kind of a decision that we are either moving forward with a candidate, or we have a candidate already in place, or we're talking about the transition. And then that gives us those next 2 weeks, give or take, prior to the Thanksgiving break, to plan to lay out the logistics and make sure we know what it is. The other thing that sort of goes along with this too, if we're operating under the plan B assumption, like we've thrown out these things, I just want to remind people, I was super clear, these were really just a rough brainstorm, right? And things were taken off the table that we didn't feel were legal under the articles of the law. And so we have not given you what our recommendation is as educational professionals yet of these 4. And so I would say that I would love to be able to narrow down that to our recommendation, and maybe it's a 1 and a 1A. At maybe the Monday meeting, it's tight, but we can try. And then that, at least then we can start to communicate with families a little bit about what Plan B's option looks like. And then we have a little bit of time still for that to digest before we have to actually make a deadline decision at that first November meeting. That's a rough sketch just off the top of my head right now. Does that sound like a reasonable timeline to people?
So Bob, can we do this? Can we go back to 3 options? You know, find a candidate, do your hiring thing. I think that's great. Keep moving that forward. I think the number 2 thing is check with the tuition, see if we can get some kind of emergency waiver.
Yeah.
You know, for to be able to tuition the students if we have to. And I'd love for you to continue with your administrators and all the staff in both buildings to come up with what your recommendation for a Plan B is. But I'd
Okay.
also, but can we also have, as part of that, and you know, going to what Tracy said and honoring Tracy's request as well as what Trisha's saying, include, you know, what you kind of presented today. Just say none of these are, you know, set in stone. They're just wild-eyed brainstorms. We just like some feedback from you so we can kind of narrow that down and maybe put together something. We can also request the parents in the buildings to respond to us too. So we can kind of give you, you and your administrators may come up with an idea that the board loves, and it's not something that parents are going to love or staff is going to love. Let's see if we can get something. And I think Monday is way too early because, you know, we also have your administrators doing a bunch of stuff. So why don't we rethink why don't you give me a reasonable time period, not the next meeting, but what's Laura shaking her head for?
I disagree.
Okay,
I disagree.
You're going to make them do something by Monday for us.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So I'm hearing Bob say, A, that they can. And also the message that I have heard loud and clear from the parents that are being impacted is they need some certainty around what's happening. And I'm not hearing at this point any unreasonableness about like, it must be this thing. I'm hearing them say they need some certainty. And I really appreciate that, having had 6th graders and 5th graders. And, you know, Bob put that on the table. If Bob put that on the table, I'd like to have that be the starting place. I think, you know, working towards a November 13th decision with the sense that we would implement after the Thanksgiving break is, I think, what I heard Bob say. I would like us to move in that direction. It feels a little slow, but also I don't know how we would go faster. It feels slow for me for the parents, but I don't know how our staff and administrator would go faster. So,
yeah, I would just say it depends on, so what I said and what Rich added to it was slightly different twists. So
no,
that changes the
100%.
timeline.
Yeah.
So I would say that if we're looking to get some sort of parent feedback on options that are multiple before recommendation is made, then we definitely need more time before Monday. If we're talking about even full staff, I think it'd be hard, depending on when staff meetings are planned and what they can do. We're talking Friday and Monday. If you're talking about the 3 of us getting together and coming up with what we think is the best option without consulting all these other people, that's what I was talking about for Monday. If we want input from other groups, I would agree we might have to push it past Monday. So it depends what you're looking for, whose input you want in first before the recommendation comes.
So I think what Rich has been asking for is, A, can this emergency tuition happen? So
sure, that I can do separately on the side. That's an easy, not easy, but I mean, that's a relatively simple, straightforward task.
Yep. Hire, hire is determined by a date, like we're either going to hire somebody by this date or we're not. So really the option number 3 is you all coming in with some recommendations. Bring us 2 or 3 recommendations, but these are our top, and, at that point, having a meeting, Rich, to have, just warning it just to talk about that and talk through what's going on. I think these are difficult circumstances. But I think we have the right people here to get this done. And I think we have to act with some expediency for these kids.
And Laura, I
And-
totally,
and just-
but go ahead, Bob, I'm sorry.
Well, my only question of clarity just was around the tuitioning piece. I'll ask that question. My assumption in my head is that you're only talking about the potential of sixth graders doing that, and then going to one of our options, which we didn't get into detail about keeping 3, 4, 5 and adding a para, which is one of our options, but just tuitioning 6. Is that what is in your head, or are you thinking 5 and 6? Or or am I just asking more generally and then seeing what the answer is?
I'm
fine,
thinking just 6. My thought, Bob, was just 6 because the parents have asked us, to have a child go to, say you use your option, then you go to Dover. So they adjust to a new school now, and then they got to adjust to a new school next year. So my thought was just the 6. The other thing though, is if a parent wants to have their child come to Dover and they're in Wardsboro, we, I believe as a board, can waive our policy because it was the policy of the board on how we go inside the district, inter, whatever that word is.
Yeah,
so
that's true, Rich. That's true, and it's actually a procedure for how that plays out. You have a policy which directs the procedure, but we don't even need board approval for that to happen. It'd just be an administrative move.
So I think if parents want that, they can do that now. I think the tuition thing is important for us to know. I'd like to hear how that comes back. I think the candidate thing, we only met on Monday. You guys have kind of worked on trying to do some stuff. I think we have to let that go for a little bit.
I don't. Sorry,
Okay,
I'm not muted.
Yeah. And I see you shaking your head, but I think what we're trying,
So Richard, in terms of, I hear that Donna may have somebody, fine, like, let's see if that works. But like, it's mid-October.
Hey, Laura, if you give me a minute, please, let me finish, okay? I don't think meeting on Monday is gonna accomplish anything other than we'll know about the tuition. It's not gonna be any quicker on the candidate, and it's really it's pushing them to have a meaningful conversation about what they think is the best plan. So the only thing I'm saying is I think we got to give them a little bit of time. I have no problem maybe meeting next Tuesday or Wednesday or something, but I don't think with tomorrow being a Friday and everybody worried about the weekends and then Monday coming back that they're going to have a whole lot more information for us. And again, Donna's teaching half the time, so it's not like she's got
I'm teaching full time. I'm teaching full time
Sorry.
every day. And I want everybody to know that these 5th, 6th graders right now are getting a very good education. Valerie Bills is giving her the math instruction. I'm doing the English language arts. They've settled. They are not in limbo right now. They are feeling really good about themselves. They went today to a field trip with Dover and had a great time. So I want you all to know that the kids have adjusted. It's not the best situation by far. And, we're doing the best we can to navigate the situation, being very mindful and thoughtful and, making sure that we are, like Tracy, like other stakeholders could be affected. So I think we really need to be, making sure we're checking all the boxes that, we didn't, and hopefully we will do that a little bit better.
So with that being said, Bob, Laura, et al., what do you guys want to do? Because we're about used up our hour.
Well, I think,
So
go ahead.
I would like to give our educational leader some clear instruction and what we want, and then let him do it. And so what I would like is I would like him to come back with those 3 options, with those 3 answers. So do we have that person? Can we do tuitioning? And what are your best options? Working with his staff to make sure that, with the administrators, to make sure that their staff and families are not surprised. And I would like that to be done as quickly as possible.
So Bob, when do you feel that you can get that? When do you feel you can have a meeting with us and give us some answers?
Well, if we're talking about rolling in some other input, which it sounds like that's what she's saying as well, that people are alerted, they're in the loop.
No, she's shaking her
I'm
head.
not. I'm
you're
not
not?
saying, I'm not saying asking for input, just making sure that they have a sense that this discussion is happening so that they know how to participate in it. That's
Okay.
all.
All right. I see what you're saying. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't. I mean, I'm in a car. It's hard for me to know what the calendar looks like for the three of us collectively to figure out if there's a time in between. My guess is the three of us can find time to meet prior to Monday's currently scheduled meeting. I mean, an extra day or so would certainly be good. I think. I think the tuition thing will be pretty easy, quick. By one day, I'll have an answer on that part. If that puts an option on the table that we don't currently have on the table, that option could be the best option, right? So if that's the best option and there's a way to work with one or both, or well, with at least sixth grade being tuitioned, and that's viable, we might not need any time at all to come forward, right? I mean, that might be an easy answer. Because the others all involve moving people and stuff, right? And those are much more complex. So I guess it's hard to know until I know the answer to that. But I mean, I think Monday we could have something for you, but I mean, Tuesday or Wednesday might be better as far as like more information and more clear information. But it's really up to you guys as far as how you feel about the timeline.
I would be, Richard, I would be very happy for our superintendent to be in touch with you tomorrow about when he needs a special meeting next week, if in fact he does need a special meeting next week after he's had time to consult with his calendar. And I'd be happy to give that to you to give a thumbs up on if that works for you and that works for him.
Okay, so I think Bob, and Dwight and Mike, my thought is we need to do something within a week to have a meeting, but let's give you some leeway so you can tell us when you have enough to so that we can get some good information, not just have a meeting to have a meeting.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Rich, I think that sounds good. Yeah, so let's connect tomorrow, Rich, and see what it looks like.
Just so you all know, when Bob sees my phone on his phone, he tells me that his phone doesn't work. It's broken. So I'm going to have to borrow somebody else's phone to call him.
You get sneak in the back
That
way.
be your flip phone or your smartphone,
Yes,
Richard?
my smart flip phone. Donna wanted to say something earlier, and I told her she had to wait a second. Are
Okay.
you all set?
I'm all set.
Okay. Is Dwight and Mike, do you have anything? Are you guys available for like a 3:30 meeting? I think that works best for the staff. Because
Yeah, I'm good with that. I totally agree with you, Rich. I think if we could have all these answers within a week, I think that would be sufficient. Earlier than that, obviously, would be better, but I think no more than a week. But to have all these answers, and I'm available for a meeting as well.
Okay, and Laura's shaking her head yes. Mike, are you good? Okay, I got a thumbs up from Mike. Justin, I'm sorry, go ahead. You gotta unmute yourself, sir.
Sorry. Like I said, I missed most of it, but as far as the tuition goes, where were you talking about the tuition being needed?
Well, tuition.
As far as going.
So the idea is if there were some parents that requested that they be allowed to tuition their child to the school they would be going to for 7th grade. But there's a whole bunch of things that go along with that because of the articles of agreement between Dover and Wardsboro, because of state laws. And it's not as easy as just saying, yeah, we'll tuition everybody. Here's, pick a school, we'll send the check. So this will be, the recording will be available probably tomorrow. And so you may want to watch that. And Bob is going to check into a little bit more about that anyway. So whatever that discussion may have been mute, but that was the idea. And that had been an initial request of some of the parents.
Okay. And we're also talking about like Leon and Gray, that would be a tuition.
Right. So anything outside of our district is Dover and the Wardsboro school. any of the West River schools is, even though we're in the same supervisory union, it's outside of our district.
Okay,
Okay, sir?
thank you.
It's clear as mud, huh? You're gonna be on the school board next year. Is everybody okay? Is there any other last comments? Valerie just came in. Everybody wave to Valerie.
She
Yeah.
made it. She made it.
I have a
from-
last comment.
Go, Laura.
I want to thank you all for working in a high stress environment, keeping your cool. I want to thank all the parents who are being clear and keeping their cool. And Richard, thank you for hanging on through this meeting. I think we really are going to get there. So thank you.
It's a long process, unfortunately, but we're gonna try to do the best we can for everybody.
Mhm.
Not everybody's gonna be happy. I just want everybody to know that, but we're gonna try to do the best we can. So, Justin, you still have another question, or just you didn't put your hand down yet? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm new. I'll get my hand down.
Okay,
I got it.
Donna's gonna take your hand away. She's cutting it off. Okay, so I would entertain, Bob, your marching orders pretty clear?
I feel like I'm exploring the tuitioning thing further for an emergency situation for 6th grade only. We're exploring the person of interest and continuing search, and we're coming up with the 3 administrators' best suggestions to what we would recommend, as well as ensuring that all families and stakeholders are being communicated with about the process.
Staff, parents,
Yep.
staff, stakeholders. Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
Those 3, the big
Got
3. You said.
All right.
Tracy, are you all
We
good?
will work on that.
Tracy's good. Okay, hey, I need, we ran over a little, but we were also a little late starting. We'll try to keep it to an hour. Bob, I'll talk to you tomorrow sometime. I have a meeting from 11 to 1, noon to 1 or 2, and I gotta go to the puppy pound. The puppy vet. So I will try. What's the best time to try to get you?
I'll just shoot you a text in the morning. I'll give you my schedule.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn from somebody?
So moved.
Thank you, Laura. Second, Mike, thumbs up. Dwight, you got it?
Sure.
Okay, so motion to adjourn by Laura, second by Dwight. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Okay, thank you, folks.